Okay, perfect. It says we're live. I'm checking Facebook to make sure everything's coming through. Awesome. I see us. We're good to go. Welcome, everybody, to the Creator Series. And this is going to actually be a really exciting conversation because part of the creative process, whether you are an artistic person or a person that maybe doesn't feel like you have natural creativity, part of being in business is creating, whether that's your marketing, your reels, your posts, or anything else that you're just wanting to put together, maybe even if it's a book, or maybe you just like to create and draw. And so we have someone amazing here, and I'm going to introduce you to Deb, or I'm going to let Deb introduce herself so she can direct you to all her amazing world of great art. Yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself, Deb, and then I'll just share how this came about. And yeah, let's start there.
Okay. Yeah, I am Deb Soromenho. I am an artist, creative first. I've all my life been doing creative things of one sort or another. Have really only in the past 5 years kind of been coming into my own and understanding who I am and how to navigate everything. But I'm loving what I'm doing now, which is watercolor. I love, incorporating like symbolism and nature and everything into my art, and making sort of these soul connections with people who, interact with my art. And yeah, I mean, I post everything almost on my Facebook, a little bit on Instagram. I have an amazing sort of newsletter group that I call the Soul Coterie. And I do all kinds of stuff with them. We have like monthly like Zoom paint nights and all kinds of stuff that's really fun. And then my website, which is my name, debsoromenho.com, which I try to keep updated, and has all my art plus some prints and collectibles and fun stuff like that on there.
Oh, I love it. And thank you so much for giving an overview. And so if someone is interested in the the workshops during the month or to join the newsletter, they can find that on your website, or should they check Facebook? Website.
On my website, my website will have like the normal pop-up that says join my newsletter. You can do it through that. You can also just contact me through Facebook. I put, like once a week or something, I'll throw the link up there to join. And it's just really fun. I mean, it's a newsletter and I do that, but I try to make it more than that. I like it to be almost like like a little email group. I call it, we're all email friends instead of Facebook friends, we're email friends. And so I do giveaways that are only for my email, list, and then the monthly Zoom paint nights and all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd love everybody to join in. That's lots of fun.
Perfect. Yeah, and for anyone that's not following Deb's work, definitely do that, because even just on Facebook and Instagram, seeing the magic that you create come through is awesome. And that's actually what inspired this conversation. Is I noticed that part of your process is you really share your process, and sometimes it's a burst of inspiration, and other times you'll be honest and say, well, I kind of haven't been motivated for a little bit, but this is what I've been working on. And I thought for anyone listening, this would be a great conversation for them to understand how to navigate and manage some of the ups and downs that go with creating, especially I know, at least for my audience in the business world, and maybe it happens in your world, there can often be this desire to almost be like, for lack of a better metaphor, like Teflon, like, nothing can get in your way, just kind of a go-getter, always motivated. And I think that's a comparison would be someone thinking, I'm never going to be sad, or I'm never going to be angry. And it's kind of like, no, these things do happen, but what we're doing is shifting our relationship to what happens when they occur. And so, yeah, I'll kind of open it up. I guess a question to start with is, for you in your creative process, what tends to show up for you, or what does that look like in terms of making progress or trying to create that consistency well, I guess, like what are the things that maybe sometimes get in the way and how do you navigate those?
Um, that is the question, right? It's
Right.
and I mean, it's funny because, you were talking about, me being an artist and a creative, that's what I do, and you like working with a lot of people who, do other things in business. Um, and possibly have some other creative. I mean, really, even an accountant is creative in their own way, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I think that as an actual artist, because so much of what we do relies on that more introspection, the more looking within, and trying to find inspiration all the time, that it gets really like too much sometimes. And
Mhm.
artists and anybody, though, we I think we've been trained, really, and I think things are changing a bit, but just in the past, we've really been trained to be like, you have to be on all the time. You have to be productive. You have to like meet certain goals and have certain desires, and have like a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan, and all these things, and you're always working towards that. And so we just get in this mindset to where we feel like we're obligated to keep moving. and
Mm.
and some of us, that feels like we need to, and some of us, I think, feel like we just are pushed towards that. So, because there's different personalities, right? And everybody deals with these things kind of differently. I'm one that needs to stay busy all the time, so it's that extra layer of when I have downtime, I feel like, what am I doing? Um, so trying to, first, I guess, and foremost, trying to navigate through these is understanding that that's not the way that it's supposed to be, that it has to be, that it should be. Is, it's not natural for us to be on every second of the day. And so really beginning with that understanding, and sort of like not really forgiveness, but like an allowing yourself
Mhm.
to have those up and downs, and possibly even embracing those ups and downs, and realizing that, before we can do anything else, we have to take care of ourselves first. Like, that self-care is on top. If we're not, taking care of ourselves first, then everything else is going to suffer.
Right.
So trying to push through those times when you're not feeling it, it could actually, make things worse, because your work is not going to be as good. You're going to just continue to, to feel bad. You're going to beat yourself up because you're not feeling productive, or you're not feeling creative, or you're not feeling like, you're doing the things that you should. And it just like is this horrible cycle that, just keeps going until, either there's some breaking point, or you get out of it somehow.
Yeah.
And I think that's like everybody's biggest thing is, when I'm not feeling like, being creative or whatever, how do I get out of it? And I think
Mm.
that's the big question, right?
Yeah, and I really appreciate you shedding light on this because I think you're right. It has been, really ingrained in people and trained in people that they always need to be on, they always need to be working, and that they need to have these 1, 5, and 10-year goals. And I think you're right. It's actually not natural. And I feel like it's this duality, right? It's not natural. And when we can almost let up on those things, it starts to make room for it to naturally happen, to have an idea of what 10 years could look like or
Yeah,
a year,
yeah,
but not having that pressure, almost like like the thumbs on it, like trying to force it. And so it sounds like the first thing to notice is if someone's having this feeling that they're stuck or it's not going how they want or that they need to produce something right away,
mhm,
that's actually a moment to almost let up a bit and just allow for that to be there rather than just trying to get rid of it. Is that
right.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think one of the reasons that I am so like open about it and transparent about it on social media is, I mean, I still struggle with it. I don't think it's something you ever get over, right? But
Right.
I am come to a place to where I understand it more. But I also know that there are probably the majority of people, feel the way I used to feel, and that you just have to be on all the time. So, and most people feel like also they have to hide it. They don't want to seem weak or depressed, or and so they don't say anything at all, and they just like
Mhm.
suffer through it or pretend or whatever. And so being open and transparent, and I'm this way with a lot of things. I mean, anything that is going on that I've learned something from, I'm like, if I can help you, somebody, work through it and realize, that at least if nothing else, they're not the only one, then I
Mhm.
love doing that. So, being open about when I'm having these, like, these times where I'm just, either not feeling inspirational, I don't feel like working, don't feel like doing it, I mean, I'll come out and say, because, it is natural, and I'll be upset about it sometimes, just because I understand what's going on doesn't mean that it doesn't upset me.
Mhm.
Because, especially in the aspect is there's kind of different levels. Like there's that, I just don't feel like working today. I'm not in the mood. And then
Right.
there's the like, I don't feel inspired. I've lost all my inspiration. I'm an artist. This can't happen. What if I never go back to normal? And, which puts like another extra layer of scary.
Yeah.
Um, but which has also happened enough times to where I know that I'm going to get back to a point that I'm happy with, if I just allow myself that space and not, just take that pressure off. Um, and I think that's, I don't know, I told you I like to talk. So I think that's
Yeah.
another thing is like when we have the longer periods of not feeling inspired, or not feeling like we're doing what we used to do. Like we used to be just on and we're doing this and we're so protective and blah, blah, blah. And then we have like an extended period where we're not feeling that inspiration. We're not feeling that motivation. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get back to normal. What am I going to do? I just, I remember, last year I was like on fire all the time, and now I'm not. And a friend said something to me the other day that made me think like, we need to, if we let go of who that was last year and embrace who we are now, we can move on, and that might even take us to a better place. Just because we were
Mhm.
super productive or whatever last year doesn't mean that that was the best thing that was working for us. So we change and we evolve, and things happen. So if we let go of that past, don't try to get back to where you were. Really examine what you're feeling now and how you can sort of move forward with that and become the new thing and possibly better thing than you were last year or last month, or whatever that feeling is that you're having for you. So I think that's like a big thing, to a big realization when people come to that point where, like, I don't have to get back to
Mhm.
the person that I was when I was feeling on fire or whatever. I can become someone new. That's pretty powerful too.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of there's a coach that I like, and one of the things that he says is, you just made me think of it. He uses the word surrender, and he says surrender isn't giving up. It's actually what we're doing to step into living, and
Mhm.
and just what's present in life. And so I think that's really profound, to realize that sometimes we can compare, right? Sometimes it's to others, but in this case, we're comparing to our past self of how productive we were or how good something was.
Yeah.
Uh, and so what you're saying is really to almost really let that have its time and space and let go of that and really
Mhm.
just be open to who they're um, becoming in a sense, or that they're, even if it's unknown, that they're moving into something different.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. I love that. I'm taking some notes as you're sharing, and it sounds like it's a process. Whatever's coming up, allow that to be there, and they don't have to keep this to themselves. They get to share that with others without
Mhm.
having to feel that shame or that guilt. And as they do that, they get to let go of it, but they also get to let go of that old version of how they thought something had to be,
Yeah.
and really to be open to what's happening and what's coming their way. And it's kind of like that idea of we sometimes we can only see what we're losing and not what we're gaining. And
Yeah.
so this will open them up to what they're
Yeah.
gaining.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow, I love that. And so, let's say, having gone through whether it's the extended period of time or having gone through these, what is, as you're moving through this process from your experience, where do you start to, I guess, where do you direct your attention? I guess I would say, because it sounds like you don't necessarily want it to be on, I need to do something, but you also don't want to close off that something could come through, if that makes sense. I mean, it's like a very gray area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the one of the biggest things is to really, like I was saying, like we're all different. It's hard to, to say any one thing, but the biggest thing is to examine and to, try different things to see what works for you. I mean,
Mhm.
the biggest thing for me is that balance between allowing yourself that time, that downtime, the sort of space to not have to feel on or productive,
Yeah.
um, but not getting to that wallow point, right? You don't want to be
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm not productive. Well, I'll just sit here and do nothing until you don't want to get to that wallow, feel sorry for yourself, all that kind of thing.
Right.
Like have that downtime that's purposeful. Like, okay, I'm not feeling motivated. Okay, let's use this time to, one, possibly take some time for self-care. Two, do other things like work on projects, do something else. And especially as a creative, like when I have different things that I do. I mean, I can talk about what I do too, to
Yeah.
move out of it, the things that work for me. And so one of the things that I do as an artist, but I think it could work with anybody really, is I'll go do something completely different. I'll just
Yeah.
play, and playing could mean actually playing for somebody. It could sports or whatever. I don't really do sports. Playing for me is more like, um, I'll go and I'll paint a mural on my wall, or I'll
Mhm.
go and I'll, uh, build a birdhouse to, put outside, or I'll, pick up wood burning or something, something that I don't do at all, that's completely different from what I do, as that I'm trying to be productive in, right?
Mhm.
So that one, it kind of like makes your brain shift. It gives your brain that space to, kind of step back from what you're trying. So you're, in a sense, like not forcing that, right? You're
Yes.
kind of redirecting. But it's also, that alone is also kind of self-care, as you're taking that time to, um, just things that you enjoy, and
Mhm.
whatever that is for you. Being a creative, it helps me to actually do also creative things, rather than, you know, play baseball or whatever. Just because a lot of times I will actually, like, one of the things I actually did recently when I was having this more extended kind of, just not feeling inspired, was I got, a bunch of stuff to do lino cut prints,
Mhm.
which I really enjoyed doing. It was really nice. I had some, some prints and I really loved it. Um, but then after a few weeks of that, it made me really miss what I normally do,
Wow.
because, it was just so different. It's not a thing that I would like to continue and, make, my art into. But it just gave me that time to kind of actually miss what it is that I really love doing. And then so I can go back into that, more inspired and feeling more, I don't know, in love with it again, if you can say that kind of thing. So that's a big one to me to do. Also, like small things. Like for me, I like to, doing that, I'll just come into the studio and I'll play like really moody music, like really
Mhm.
loud, and just like let that kind of just like soak into me. I mean, that could be anything from like I love bagpipes, so I'll listen to bagpipes, or I'll listen to like I like Imagine Dragons because it's just
Yeah.
very anthemic and it just like just feels powerful. And so things like that I'll have. And that just kind of like helps me just sort of, like I don't know. I think it just kind of takes over and you just, you don't feel anything. So you just have almost like a meditation time during that.
Yeah.
That's another thing I like doing. Another thing that works for me is I'm like a people watcher. So
Mhm.
I go out, and especially I'm lucky to live by a river. So I can go and sit in a cafe that overlooks the water and people watch and daydream, and um I'll do that. Another thing that I'll do is I love also to visit like towns that are, close by. So I'll just go to a town that, and, go to antique shops or something, walk around, just get out. Um, so those are the three main things that help me. And it all depends on my mood at the time. Sometimes some things work and, not others, or how much, time it. If it's just a day, I'm just feeling an afternoon where I'm not feeling inspired, then, I'll put on the music or something. But I think it's finding those things that work for you is what's most important, because it's going to be different. It's going to be different for different people. So, but if you allow yourself that space, then you can find those things, because you're feeling bad but not feeling like doing anything for a day. So what is it you enjoy doing? Go do that and see how it makes you feel. And then just keep track of what works and what doesn't, and that kind of thing. And I think that's, for the especially for those shorter term kind of blahs or feeling unproductive kind of things, that helps a lot.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's, from my experience as well, that's amazing. And it does vary per person. Cause I know Ellie and I, sometimes we will, we try to write each day. And sometimes if we're in one of those moods or something of, I have to get this done, or I have to, get a post out, it doesn't have the same energy as
Mm,
when we're in the more creative process, or
yeah,
really into it.
yeah,
And so yeah, sometimes we can think if we hold the thing or focus on the thing that'll be the answer, but almost always it's really just setting the thing down. And sometimes I know for us, we'll go on like a scooter ride. We have like electric scooters, or
yeah,
or yeah, we'll go to a cafe, and maybe I'll go through some papers that maybe I've been avoiding or something, and just like
yeah,
clearing the clutter.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think it sounds like you're really encouraging, for who's ever listening, for them to give themselves just a space to have some downtime to play, and really test out for themselves
Mhm.
what they connect with, what might be what they might be curious to direct their own energy towards.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Wow, I love that. And so yeah, I think this is wonderful. And is there, for these, I guess, time frames in these periods, it sounds like there's a nice process to really just analyze for themselves, to say, maybe I need to step away. Let me just look at what's happening here and getting
Mhm.
familiar. Do you have any recommendations for them on how to almost bring awareness or get familiar to the common things that occur? So I guess I'm trying to think of the way to phrase this. It's almost as though, in my experience, there's probably common things that come up in the process, and so the familiarity is almost an element of, oh yeah, this is happening again. Let me set this down and step outside. But someone that isn't aware or familiar might just feel like it's this thing that's kind of happening and might feel out of their control. Do you have any recommendations on how they might start to just familiarize themselves with sort of what state they're in or what might be happening?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I haven't thought about. I mean, because it is different. There's like a difference between, like I'm trying to, work on this and I'm just feeling like a little bit stuck. If
Mhm.
you're writing something and, it's not like you're not necessarily feeling completely uncreative or whatever. You're just a
Yeah.
little bit stuck. Um, as opposed to you actually are completely, just feeling, without inspiration, and you just can't work at all. So there is a difference, and you're right. Like
Mhm.
identifying that is um is sometimes hard. I think that a lot of it is the more extended period of time. And if you're working on something and you just have a few minutes to where you're like, oh gosh, I can't think of what to write next. I mean, that's something
Mhm.
you need to work through, right? And
Yeah.
those things you can work through. It's, not every time you're stuck for a word to say or something is that, a cause to panic or to, run and take a walk. I mean, although a quick taking a walk also, will help those kind of thing, but in the more drastic measures. Um I'm trying to think of like what I mean, for me personally, it's really just kind of as like how long has it been since I've been feeling that way? And is it directed towards something very specific, like something I'm working on, that I'm kind of feeling stuck, so I feel like I'm procrastinating?
Mhm.
Because there's also that just like I'll do that, and I think a lot of us do that. You're working on something, you're trying to think, and it's you're kind of hurting your brain. You're like, well, suddenly, let me see, I think I need to go wash the dishes, and so you start procrastinating. But you're not really stuck. It's
Right.
just that few minutes to where you're feeling like you just need some time to before you can work on things. So I think just giving the amount of time, like if it's extended, if you've been like trying to work on eh, and speaking of me as an artist, it is a little bit different. But if I'm working on the same painting and it's just crap, like nothing is working right, I'm not inspired, I have to drag myself into the studio to work on it. There's no feeling of like joy that I have going into it. I just feel like it's work. um
Mhm.
for me, that's a clear sign that I'm at a place I need to maybe step back and allow myself some time. If I'm just working on a painting and I'm like, oh, I can't get this dragonfly right, the wings are all wrong, and so you just keep working on it. That's not so much. I'm just I mean, sometimes that happens. You
Yeah.
are looking for the right way to draw something. You're looking for the right color to use. You are looking for the right words to use, and when you're writing, those are really easy. But it's that I think maybe, especially in things that you love, maybe that's it. Is kind of when you lose the joy of doing it, when you lose that feeling of like, yeah, it's hard, I'm struggling, but I still
Mhm.
feel joy around the project or around what I'm
Mhm.
working on. Even though it's hard, it's still something that's very satisfying to me, and it's something that's very feels good to be doing. um, I think when that starts to go away and you start feeling like, you're dragging yourself to do it and it just feels like work, and you're hating every second that you're in front of it. Um, that's probably like a big tipping point. I think
Yeah.
that, you're in a place where maybe you need to, to step back and think, okay, exactly how am I feeling? What do I need right now? Do I just need a few minutes to take a walk? Do I need something longer? Do I need to actually, you know, take some time to have a longer sort of break, and pull out some of my tricks in my bag to help me to get through it, whatever that may be. And that's another thing, is analyzing that, having those tricks in the bag that work for you, to be able to pull out to help you get through those times faster. Because yeah, like, again, we don't want to wallow. You don't want to, like, if you can actually allow yourself that time and get through it in one day,
Yeah.
much better than a week or a month or whatever. If you just if you don't have those things that help you, and if you just start to wallow and feel sorry for yourself, it's just going to, like, drag on. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think you even came to it from a little bit of an angle that I didn't expect, which I think is good. Because I think that is something that occurs sometimes for people is maybe they are working on something or they did lose some of the joy. And so it sounds like that's a clear indicator to take a step back. And it sounds like that is actually very different from what you're saying of
Mhm.
maybe there's some frustration during the process or something doesn't seem like uh, it's going right. I know, I I could be incorrect here, but I think in my experience, tangible art that people are creating with their hands can feel a little different than I say digital art, but maybe I'm just thinking of like words and writing or posts. And I think there can be an element which I think is actually really good because where you may look and see a dragonfly and say, oh, I'm not getting the wings quite right. It kind of, uh, I mean, let me know. It might look like you're able to maybe redo something or come at it from a few different angles. I
Mhm.
think when people are writing or maybe they're making a reel or a TikTok, they might not sense those different ways that they could go about it. I think it
Mhm.
might feel like a little bit of a linear process where they're kind of just feeling like there's a big gap or something. So I think that frustration can turn into, I'm not good at writing, I'm not
Yeah,
good at this thing, or I
yeah,
don't have an answer.
yeah.
What do you do in those moments, I guess, of stepping away, of I guess trying to manage your own state in the process of just I guess taking care of yourself without losing hope, if that makes sense.
Um, I mean, it's funny because there are times I think that you need to just realize it's time to step away. Now that's, I mean, not exactly the question that you're asking, um, because I think that would be different, but just in kind of thinking about, paying attention to what's actually going on with you,
Mhm.
and it made me think of it because when you mentioned the TikTok, like, and you're right, it does work differently. TikToks aren't usually something that we do that, necessarily gives us great joy. Especially
Right.
as a business person, we're doing them probably because it's like part of social media marketing.
Mhm.
Unless you just really love to go and make, dance on TikToks, and some people do, but that's not
Yeah.
me. So when I'm doing those kind of things, um it's really part of like the social media marketing. And so you don't feel that same kind of joy. So it is harder to kind of understand how you're feeling. So I think at that point you just have to make the choice whether you're going to trudge through it and just
Mhm.
do it because you know you have to, or let it go. And I mean, honestly, that's kind of what I did with my TikToks because I was on going back, I was like on fire last year. Like I was doing TikToks like crazy. I like my following grew like greatly. I was getting like hundreds of thousands of views on my TikToks, and it felt really good at the time. But then I got burned out because it's their work, and
Mhm.
when something is a lot of work that you don't necessarily get a lot of joy out of, it is hard. And, so I at one point, I'm like, I have to let this go because one, it took up enough time. It was taking away from other things that I was doing that were more important.
Mhm.
It was not giving me joy. It was absolutely work every single time. And so that was something that was not as important to me. I could let it go. And again, also that a little bit comes back to the self-care thing. Like you have to like make those choices sometimes, and sometimes you can't. Honestly, sometimes you can't. There are things that you have to do, and that's kind of almost like a whole different sort of realm because you to get through the things that you have to do is a lot of just willpower, and kind
Mhm.
of that perseverance and that grit kind of thing. Like, no, it's not giving me joy, but my deadline's tomorrow and I just have to do it. Is a completely different thing than, well, TikTok is supposed to be good for marketing, so let me do some TikToks. And and then finding that balance. Like for me, I had to let it go. It was not, it was just taking up too much of my time, too much of my energy, from doing other things. So, a lot of times it's like actually looking at that and making those choices too. Like what can you let go? Is it something that you can let go? You don't necessarily need to, you know, hold on to it. Even taking a break might not help. I mean, it might, but it might not. Um, and and now I've forgotten your original question.
No, that's okay. I think this is really good because it almost sounds like there's this spectrum. There's especially with the art or whatever someone is crafting, whether it's actual art like you're creating, or whether it's someone in the business sense, if maybe they're creating a book, maybe they're doing something that really interests them. There's a spectrum of that which inspires them and they're curious about and they get a lot of joy from. And, if something's happening there, they could, take a step away from it and maybe come back. And if they've lost, lost interest for an extended period of time, give themselves some space to step away, to try out some other things so they actually have a chance to miss what they actually love. So that's one end. And then another end is the things that they're doing, which you were just explaining with the TikTok, which maybe there can be some gratification, like you were sharing, whether it's hundreds of thousands of views on your TikTok, and it took work, but the actual joy of that wasn't really there. And so there was a reward. And so, for them to weigh, is the reward worth all the effort and the energy, or does it make more sense to set that aside, if they're burnt out from it, and direct their attention towards something that's going to be more aligned with them?
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say something. I know you'd mentioned something about like keeping sort of that momentum day to day when you have to, because I mean ultimately we want to be productive and creative every day.
Right.
And there are those larger downtimes that we have where we're just we need to give ourselves space. But then the actual just being able to keep that pace and everything day to day, I think is kind of on a different level, because it's not necessarily like you've completely lost joy in anything. But you just have those little bits of ups and downs to where, one day you're like, oh, I just really don't feel like doing anything. The next day you're on okay with it. And on those type of things, especially as an artist, like I will have different things going at the same time that I'm working on.
Yeah.
And I don't suppose that happens, in some businesses, we can't really do that. But I think most, especially entrepreneurs, you have different things that you're juggling. Like we wear a lot of hats. So, a lot, giving yourself that, being able to take that variety. And even if you're a scheduler, I'm not really a scheduler, but even if you're a scheduler, like say like Mondays are for website stuff, Tuesdays are for this, Wednesdays are for this. And so, you're not doing the exact same thing every single day. That's like, that just becomes really hard to keep going and keep motivated on. So, you kind of just like vary that up to where each day you're like, oh, now I get to work on this today, and continue from what I was doing the other day. And so you can kind of give yourself a break in that way, almost, by doing, breaking things out into different things. So you're not getting overwhelmed or bored of, one certain thing. So, I mean, that's the best thing about being an entrepreneur is, or wearing all the hats of an entrepreneur, is being able to switch back and forth. Like I will do that a lot of times when I'm not feeling inspired. I'll go and work on my website, or usually it's when I'm trying to work on my website, I'll decide then suddenly that I'm inspired and I need to go paint. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, on the day-to-day thing, I think that's like the trick of it, is like just, keeping that variety and breaking things up so that you have almost something new to go to every day.
Yep. I love that. And for anyone watching, if they have a certain situation, they're welcome to, post their question, and we might be able to workshop that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I really love what you shared. It almost sounds like part of this is them taking the time to get a sense of their rhythm and the variety that they like. I know for me, for Wednesdays, I don't put anything on the calendar. It doesn't mean that I don't work. I just like the option of it being almost like a free day. And then, I'll have variety during other days. And that's just from getting a sense of how I do things. Do you do any particular rhythm or rituals that you find have really helped you?
My biggest thing that's helped me, and I say this all the time to, especially to any artist that I know, but it would work for, right. I think it would work for anybody. Is the thing that gives you the most joy, do that first. Like, I
Mhm.
come into my studio every single morning, even on the days where I have lots of, errands to run or whatever, I have a billion other things to do. Or even when I'm not feeling that inspired, I come into my studio every single day. And even if I just like arrange my brushes, or I do a little sketching, or just clean up my desktop, I come in and do that every single day. And this, is kind of the opposite of doing different things every day. But this, is almost it being an artist, it changed how I thought about myself as an artist, because the doing my art first um put it as number one, instead of like, well, I really
Mhm.
need to do the dishes. I mean, I work at home too. So, and I think most of, the entrepreneurs that we're going to be talking to probably
Yeah.
work from home. Um, Doing all the chores or all the other stuff first, or even if you sit and, you pound out some emails first or something that, you don't, it's, you don't really like to do. Um, it sets like a whole different mood. And so, and I know it's not always possible. Like, I have a friend who's an artist. She has a job that she does during the morning, so she can't do
Mhm.
that first, right? She has to do her other job first. Um, but at that point, then you set a very designated time to do the things that you gives you joy and that's going to move you forward. Um, and so when I start doing that, when I start coming into my studio every single day, I really start feeling like, okay, I am an actual professional artist. I don't do this on the side and try to sell my art, and it's not a hobby. It's not, this, I am an artist, and this is where I work. This is my space that I do what I need to do. And yes, it gives me joy and I love to do it. But on top of that, it becomes your priority, and it becomes,
Mhm.
sort of, it puts that importance there. So it's no longer like a something that you push to the side, like, well, I don't have time to paint today because I got to do other things. That you make time to paint every day.
Mhm.
And a lot of times even that will help with the inspiration thing, because if you
Yeah.
if you're not feeling inspired, say like, oh, I don't want to go in the studio today because I'm not feeling inspired, then suddenly, like, 2 weeks out, you haven't been in the studio. And who knows, like, if you had gone back 2 days later, or the next day, 2 days in a row, you might have become inspired again. So, just making that a priority. And that honestly is the biggest thing that's helped for me. The other things kind of, I mix up. I don't, I kind of do how I feel. Like, after lunch is when I do, like, computer stuff and all that kind of thing. And it kind of goes along with what I'm feeling. I'm not so good about taking care of those things. But the art stuff, because this is who I am. I am an artist. This is what I do. And this is what gives me joy. I do it first, and I do it, every single day. I come in and make sure that I'm doing something in here first. Like I said, even if it's literally just cleaning off my desktop and staring at the walls, I'm in my space. It is a priority. And faster than not, I will get that inspiration back because of that. And
Yeah.
plus, sometimes when you start doing something, I'll start cleaning off my brushes, and it has some color left on there, so I do a swash, and suddenly I'm feeling inspired again, just
Mhm.
because I've been playing with my tools and that kind of thing. So
Yeah, I really like that. It's this idea of stepping into the level of a professional, which I think is something that I had to learn a while ago. That a coach said, there's people that do things as a hobby, and they just kind of do it. And they said, if it's really important to you, step into the level of a professional.
exactly.
And I really, really love this idea of, if it's your number one, make it your number one during the day, when you wake up. And, that makes me think of two things, which I really like, because sometimes I would feel challenges around, creating different stuff, that I'm working on. And, for me, when I made, something a number one, just having the time in the calendar, or at least the habit to, when I wake up or just in the morning to, step into my area to work on the thing, I almost viewed it as not whether I was going to be successful or not, but just giving the chance for something, great to occur.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my next question of, what is, for anyone listening, what would you consider progress? Because I think sometimes we might have the idea that when we go to sit down to do something, it has to sort of, end up as this perfect thing or all this great
Mhm.
success. And in my experience, progress is sometimes me just sitting with the thing, and it might only be a few lines that I write or create. But to me, I have to look and say, this is progress,
Mhm.
even if it doesn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just curious your take on that.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, that's why, like, coming into my studio and even just straightening my brushes, I mean, I am still moving forward in
Hmm.
my business, and in my career, or whatever you want to call it. That to me is still moving forward. It's progress. As long as I am moving forward, even if it's just like a like a mental thing. Like today, I'm just daydreaming about where I want my, art to be in, next year. You're moving forward. As long as you're moving forward, I feel like that's progress. Um, so doing little things like that, like, making it, set time to do stuff, even if you are busy, you have kids and you have all this other stuff and you have very little time to do what you're supposed to do. Even if it's like, that 10 minutes before bed to where you like are, planning out what you need to do the next day, or you're not, I mean, and I'm not talking about taking your kids to, soccer practice or something. I'm talking about towards your business, and the
Hmm.
things that you are wanting to do. Um, is progress. I mean, you're moving forward, even if it's like a little bit at a time.
Yes.
And when you start thinking about it like that and feeling better about yourself, like don't and I am a very, very optimist, like diehard optimist, you know, glass completely full kind of girl. So to me, like those little things, like instead of saying, "Oh God, the only thing I got done today was like, making a list of what I had to do tomorrow." No, you made your list for what you get to do tomorrow. Like
Hmm.
you, out of all of the things that you had to do today, you still, were able to get that list done for the things that you need to do tomorrow. That's progress. It's not like quit with the negative stuff. And and I'm always like saying, like, quit arguing for your limitations. Like
Hmm.
you, if that's all you have time for, then you know what? That's good. You're making time for that. You're making those 10 minutes to, to push over. So instead of like complaining about like, I had to do all this stuff. I didn't get anything done except for blah, blah, blah. Looking at that as movement forward. You made the time, you had time to do that. So that tomorrow, you have a head start, and maybe, you'll be able to actually get more done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just appreciating what they have gotten done, and
Mhm.
um, I love that phrase, you know, what we appreciate appreciates. And so them just acknowledging their own progress, it appreciates, it grows.
Yeah.
You know, I think this is a perfect area to, you know, end on. I really appreciate you, you know, sharing and opening up and really sharing your wisdom from your experience, because I think this is something that artists and entrepreneurs experience quite a bit, and there's not, you know, there's not always a lot of sharing on, you know, people just going through the process. So I want to thank you for doing that. And for anyone that maybe, you know, came in before, came in partway through, what's your website again, so they can find you?
It is debsoromenho.com. So just my name, DebSoromenho.com. And that goes to my website with all my art. It has my blog, it has my newsletter sign up, all that is on there. And then all of my socials are under the same thing, Deb Soromenho. I think my Instagram is debsoromenho.art. My, you know, all the others, my, you know, I mean, I have, if there's a social media out there, I have an account on it, even if I'm not active on it, right? So, you know, anywhere, you know, you can find me under my name, and, you know,
Cool.
it'll all come up.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you so much. And for
You.
anyone listening, if you're wanting more of these interviews and conversations, you can go to givememygoodies.com, and I have you know, some amazing interviews on there, and you know, we'll have your interview there, Deb. And as well, if you're interested in coaching, you can go to Wightman, JMWIGHTMAN.com, and you'll be able to see my site and any details about coaching. So thank you, Deb. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. This was super
Yeah.
fun. I love just talking about this stuff, and hopefully, you know, have helped somebody, at least, you know, let you know that it's okay to like talk about it and be open about it, because you are not alone. It happens to everybody.
It sure does.
Mm,
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you so much.
perfect.
Bye.